I had rehearsed the words so many times that they no longer felt like mine. I can cook. I can clean. I can stay quiet. I will not eat much. I will not be a burden. I said them into the rain, into the dark, into the cracked visor of my breathing mask, long before I ever said them to anyone real. By the time I reached the only door on that frozen colony strip still leaking warm light through its seams, the words had worn smooth as river stones, the way anything does when you carry it too long. I did not come from a great house. I did not come from a proud line of warriors or scholars, whatever stories people like to tell about my kind back home. I came from a work camp on a mining moon that no longer exists, because the company that owned it decided, in the flat arithmetic of profit and loss, that the workers standing on the platinum were worth less than the platinum itself. I had been passed from one owner to another before I was old enough to understand what the word owner even meant. I learned early how to make myself small, in rooms where other people decided things about my life without asking what I wanted. So when the last of the company enforcers came to clear out those of us too old, too tired, or too inconvenient to move to the next site, I ran. I ran through tunnels I had memorized as a child, past the broken fence, out into a storm that should have killed me in 20 minutes. It should have. Most storms on that world did. Instead, I found a light. There was a small trading post 2 kilometers past the fence, run by outsiders, people from a species called human. I did not know much about them then, only rumors. Some said they were dangerous. Some said they were foolish, always helping people who could not repay them. I did not care which story was true. I only knew there was a door, and there was light behind it, and I would not survive the night without it. I fell against that door. I do not remember knocking. I remember it opening, and warmth pouring out like something alive, and a shape crouching down in front of me, too tall, too pale, nothing like anyone who had ever crouched down to help me before. That was when I said it. The words I had practiced my whole life, the only thing I had ever been taught to offer another person in exchange for kindness. I can cook, I whispered, my voice torn ragged by the cold. I can clean. I can stay quiet. I will not eat much. I will not be a burden. Please. I expected him to look me over the way everyone always had. I expected him to be thinking, is she useful? Is she worth the food she'll eat? Is she worth the trouble? He did not do any of that. He said, "You're freezing," and lifted me, like I weighed nothing at all. He carried me inside, set me down beside a heater that ran warmer than anything I had ever stood near, and wrapped a blanket around my shoulders that smelled of metal and oil, and something green I had no name for. Then he sat across from me, not too close, not looming over me the way people usually did, and waited quietly until my breathing slowed before he spoke again. "What's your name? Not what can you do, not what are you worth. My name," I told him. He repeated it back correctly on the very first try, which almost no one ever managed, and something in my chest that had been clenched tight since childhood loosened, just slightly. I looked down at the floor so he would not see what that small kindness cost me to receive. His name was Elias. He flew cargo for a living, nothing fancy, just small hauls between outposts, too far from anywhere for the big companies to bother servicing. He lived alone in a converted metal shelter, bolted onto the edge of the trading post, and as far as I could tell in those first few days, he did not need anyone to cook for him, or clean for him, or stay quiet in the corner of his home. I did those things anyway. It was the only language I knew for saying thank you. It was the only way I knew to say please don't send me back, and please don't realize you don't actually want me here. He let me, for a while. He ate the meals I made without complaint, even the strange ones, made from ration paste mixed with the few ingredients I still recognized from home. He never stopped me from scrubbing his floors until they gleamed, even though I do not think they had ever needed to be that clean, or been that clean before. But I noticed, sometimes, the way his jaw would tighten when he watched me flinch at a sudden sound, or apologize for simply standing in a doorway. On the 5th night, he found me scrubbing a metal wall that was already spotless. My hands were raw. I had heard him sigh in the next room, and my whole body had gone cold with certainty that I had done something wrong, that this was the beginning of the warmth disappearing, the way it always eventually did. He crouched down again, the way he had that very first night, and placed his hand gently over mine to stop the scrubbing. "You don't have to earn this," he said. "Any of it. The heat, the food, The door staying open. You don't owe me work just for being allowed to exist in my home. Everyone owes something, I said, because that was the only law I had ever been taught. Nothing is free. This is, he said simply. This is free. I'm not going to send you back out into that storm because you stopped cleaning a wall that didn't need it. I did not believe him. Not really, not yet. Trust like that is not built in 5 days. It is not built with words alone. But over the following weeks, I noticed something. He never once asked me for anything I had not offered first. He fixed the crack in my old breathing mask without being asked, and he refused to let me thank him for it. He taught me the names of things around his home, his tools, his food, the small bright points of light visible from the shelter's one window, patient as still water, never once making me feel foolish for not already knowing, and slowly, so slowly that I did not notice it happening until it already had, I stopped rehearsing my worth before I walked into a room. There were quiet moments that mattered more than I expected. He taught me a card game one evening, using a worn deck he kept in a drawer, and laughed. Actually laughed, warm and unguarded, when I won on my very first try through nothing but luck. He showed me how to fix a small leak in the shelter's water line, guiding my hands instead of doing it for me, telling me that knowing how to fix things myself mattered more than having someone fix them for me. He never once made me feel like a guest waiting to be asked to leave. I began to notice small things about myself changing too. I stopped counting how much food I took before eating it. I stopped standing by the door out of habit, ready to run if I was told to go. I began, for the first time I could remember, to simply sit in a room because I wanted to be there, and not because I was waiting for permission. The trading post itself was a strange, hopeful little place. A handful of other humans lived there, along with a few travelers from other worlds who had, like me, found their way to that door for one reason or another. Nobody asked too many questions about where anyone had come from. Elias was not the only kind one among them, but he was the reason I had found the place at all, and so his kindness always felt, to me, like the center of it. The trouble came on a gray morning, weeks later, when 3 enforcers from my old mining company arrived at the trading post, demanding what they called the return of company property. That was the word they used for me, property, as if I were a piece of equipment left behind by mistake. I have never, before or since, seen Elias go that still. He did not raise his voice. He did not reach for any weapon, though I knew he kept a few locked away for emergencies. He simply stood in the doorway of his own home, between the enforcers and me, and told them, calmly, that this outpost recognized no property claims over refugees who had crossed its threshold seeking safety. He told them that if they believed otherwise, they were welcome to file a formal complaint through the proper trade channels, which were many systems away, and that in the meantime, they should leave his doorstep before he stopped being polite about it. They left. Grumbling, clearly furious, but they left, because word travels fast in that part of space about what happens to people who push a human's patience past its limit, and none of them wanted to become that story. When the door finally closed behind them, I was shaking so hard I could barely stand. Elias turned around, saw it, and did not say anything about courage or danger or any of the things I braced myself to hear. He simply opened his arms, an offer rather than a demand, and waited to see if I wanted to close the distance myself. I did. After that day, something between us settled into something steadier. I still cooked, some days. I still cleaned, when the quiet work of it helped calm my hands, but I no longer whispered those old rehearsed words before every request, the way I once had, like a toll I had to pay just to be allowed to take up space in a room. Elias never wanted a servant. He never wanted someone who owed him a debt that could never quite be repaid. He wanted, it turned out, exactly what he had told me that very first cold night. Nothing at all in return, freely given, a door that stayed open whether or not I had done enough to earn the warmth behind it. I am still learning what it means to live somewhere that nothing is a trade. It is the strangest, hardest, and most beautiful thing I have ever had to learn. Some days old habits return without warning. I catch myself halfway through an apology for a mistake I have not even made, or flinch at a raised voice that turns out to be laughter. But each time, Elias is patient. He never once made me feel foolish for still carrying pieces of where I came from. Sometimes, in the evenings, other travelers from the outpost gather in Elias's shelter, and I find myself telling small pieces of my story, not all of it, not yet, but more than I ever thought I would share with anyone. They listen. Nobody asks me to prove my worth before they let me finish speaking. Some nights, when the storms outside howl against the metal walls, and the heater hums warm and steady, and Elias is fixing some small broken thing at the table, without once asking me to fetch his tools, I let myself believe, fully, without flinching, that I am not anyone's property here. I am simply home. And for the first time in my life, that word means exactly what it is supposed to mean.